Yeah, I know it's been a while since I last made a video, but hey, I was playing Persona 5, I just finished it last night, I got free time now, and I can now start focusing on YouTube and these particular videos once again. Now I also finished watching a series on Crunchyroll called Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and I'm always attracted to like animes or shows that have to do with like either like subhumans of some sort, just because it's a little different from the norm of anything that's like close to being realistic. And I don't like that, because I just did a video, you know, earlier on this channel about the Monster Musume, or Everyday Life with Monster Girls, which actually got English dubbed and is now available for pre-order on Sentai Filmworks. So you can check that out. It's coming out in the summer, maybe around June or so. I'll have to check the date again. But anyway, to now talk about Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. They did a good job introducing like folklore dragons into the series and turn them into anime characters. Although, if you really are interested in knowing about their backgrounds, their early cultural backgrounds, that's already been covered by Gaijin Goomba, and I'll put a link to his video in the description, and you can check that out if you want. I saw it earlier today. There were a lot of things I already knew that he was discussing, and some things that I didn't know certain details on. But anyway, back to the show. Now, for any viewer out there who hasn't seen the show, is interested in seeing the show but hasn't made the time, let me pique your interest a little bit. It's basically about dragons who come to the real world from their world and take on human form to try and live among human society, since it's now in modern times and it's no longer a medieval survival of the fittest type of lifestyle. Now, of course, the first one is Toru, a female dragon who joins this woman in her apartment, wants to live together. Turns out that she's attracted to her, really likes her, but wants to live among her, and the only way that you can really make it possible with her at that point in the story is work as a maid. You know, if you want to like be here and live here, I'm not just gonna have you squatting with me. So she becomes a maid and starts to do, you know, everything that a normal human girl would do, although she has to kind of hide her dragon form, although she never really hides her horns. Well, she does like hide her tails or sharp teeth and her, of course, her claws or anything when she's in human form and out in public, but the horns never seem to go away. And you know, I find that kind of alright. You know, like I heard on the lore that when she's out like that, the public would mistake her as just a cosplayer, since those happen way more often in Japan, probably anywhere else in the world. Now, of course, she's adorable as hell, and I'm sure all of us wish we could have some sort of maid or companion that's like her. Every episode in this series is kind of like a day-to-day life of just living, you know, normal days. There's no plot that's consistent. It's just, let's go shopping, let's do this. Maybe the only thing that is consistent in episodes is plans for dinner. And then, of course, that comes in with the shopping. And after seeing the opening intro of the show, it showed that there were going to be other dragons coming in. So I was waiting for the second dragon to make their appearance, and of course along with the third and fourth. But of course, the second one turns out to be everyone's favorite moe character. Kana, which is based off of a dragon in Japan, is now introduced as a human character in this series. And of course, there's like a complete giant fandom among her. Like, she hit really hard with the moe crowd. And I'm not really much of a moe myself, but she kind of got me interested in seeing more moe. Like, I'm not a parent right now, personally, but seeing her on the show and just seeing like all like the fan art and even like all the GIFs people have taken from the show, which you're obviously seeing right here, you know, does give you like a bit of a parental type feeling when you're around her. And that makes me wonder, like, if I were to have like a daughter like later on in my life, I would kind of get a gist of what it's like. So she is just full of moe, but of course, since she's also a dragon, she does seem to act a bit dragon-like or like a pet, even in her human form. And that just ups the moe gauge even further among her fan base, which also makes her completely even more adorable. The next dragons that are introduced is Lukoa, or Quetzalcoatl, I'm not really surprised they switched the gender of this dragon in this show, because they, you know, Japan and anime, they kind of tend to switch genders of characters that are mythical or any type of like legendary folklore characters as well. Like they do that like twice in this show with Kana and Lukoa, Fafnir. He is very similar to the way his legend is based off of. Instead of having an obsession with gold, which is, you know, kind of a dragon stereotype, but I guess he's the one that started that lore. He now has an obsession with video games, and I don't know if it's otaku, you know, fandom, but games in general is the main focus. And he does end up living to Kobayashi's next door neighbor, who they just play all video games and engage in otaku thing. And that's another thing that's welcome in anime, because hey, we're all otaku. This is the perfect marketplace for us to see stuff like that. And finally, last but certainly not least, is my waifu taken from this show, Elma. Now, Elma's not really based on any particular type of dragon, but as Gai Jinguma says in his video, she's sort of based on the Jiaolong dragons, a Chinese dragon where you're kind of like a water serpent with a single horn and a fin tail. And a lot of the characteristics that she uses in the show aren't really based on any particular folklore or legend surrounding the dragon, but I guess that gives them more freedom to kind of create more character traits and developments for Elma, and none of them have any sort of negative impact on her. As a matter of fact, they make her even more adorable, which does kind of make me love her even more. I mean, I have a sweet tooth and she has a sweet tooth, and that's like a big plus in my book. Although I found it a bit puzzling how she was so quick to adjust to human society. Of course, she used Kobayashi to help land a job, although she has like no training whatsoever and doesn't even know what the name of the equipment is in there, like computer and keyboard and electricity. I don't know if how she was so quick to adjust. That kind of happens off camera, but eventually she does work. I guess makes money from that job and even starts living on her own. She's like, to my knowledge, the only dragon there who is not living among another human like everyone else in the dragon characters are. Kana and Toru are with Miss Kobayashi. Lukoa is with this boy who's a descendant of mages that said she summoned her, but I don't know if she just responded to the summon, or it didn't seem like she was forced into the summon, so I don't know if you could call it summoning. But anyway, they ended up being a bit of a running gag couple, even though they're not officially a couple. I mean, hell, he's like, what, a 5th grader? and she's like, I don't know, like 25-year-old appearance. Even though they're dragons, they're probably like hundreds of years old. And like I said earlier, Fafnir is living next door to Kobayashi, so he fits in there. Everyone almost seems to fit in with where they're at. Again, Lukoa, questionable at best, but hey, it brings running gags. Now I have to say, there really is no like conflict involved in any of these, except for like just personal, temporarily only happening the day of, you know, conflicts. Like in most animes, you would see that there would be one giant story where they have to like involved in a fight between the dragons and the humans. There's a war going out. They do say that there's a war among the dragons in the dragons world, or the dragons and the humans. They don't really say. I'm sure it happens later on in the mangas. I'm hoping that they do. I'm sure everyone watching this agrees with me that they make a 2nd season of the show. We'll have to wait maybe a few months, a year minimum. We'll see, because these things are never really certain. They probably look at the feedback. If it does well, they make another season. If it starts to slow down, then they cut it off at like 1 or 2 seasons. And I genuinely hate it when they do that to a series on anime that are based on mangas, because I thought, you know, like sometimes the mangas are harder to find overseas outside of Japan, whereas anime is more plentiful, especially now with online streaming. And now I've reached the point where, like, if there's a series I'm really invested in and interested in, if I want to know what happens outside of the anime where it was cut off, I would have to read the mangas to essentially continue the story and enjoy it. But we'll see what happens. Now the time has come to finally address the elephant in the room surrounding a theme in this story. I've seen memes off of Tumblr and Reddit and Facebook and all sorts of things where you can post GIFs or images at the homosexuality among a lot of key characters there. Of course, the first one is Toru and Miss Kobayashi, although Kobayashi doesn't really seem to like embrace the relationship that Toru is interested in with her. I'm talking about the certain one, not the maid and, you know, master type. But although there is a maid and master type of love that they could get involved in, but I think that's left to doujins. You can't just help but just awe when she just cuddles next to or wants to hug Miss Kobayashi. It's just adorable. Kana, of course, being a kid, doesn't really exhibit any sort of sexual preference. She just lives every day to day like a child. Plays with her food like a kid would, jumps and plays around, and other stuff that you would find a kid normally doing in public around her age. I don't know what human form age group that Kana would be in, but Kana at one point in the show decided to attend school, and according to the athletic competition, they are third graders. Now here in my country of America, third graders tend to be around the age group of 8 or 9 years old. So she's probably in human form has taken on that age group of an 8 or 9 year old. Whereas in dragon years, she's probably like maybe, what, 150 or so? I don't know what the dragon lifespan is in Miss Kobayashi's, you know, lore. But I'm guessing like Toru's father, who appears both in the mangas and in the final episode of the first season, I'm guessing he's over 1,000 years old. So if a dragon can live to be over 1,000 years old, 150 years is pretty young, I guess kid age. And of course, if there actually is something written down in the Kobayashi lore or the mangas or anything that the super fans would like to tell me, hey, feel free to bitch me out. But just so you know, I'm just going off of what I've seen and what I've heard. And the rest is just pure speculation on my part. But anyway, I kind of rambled on about that, but I did feel the need to say it, so I said it, so it's there. Now, there's this new friend that Kana makes, although she didn't start out as a friend. She is, you know, a bully, and then suddenly she wins her over, and see exactly what made her fall in love with Kana. Although, everybody falls in love with Kana. So it's not exactly a shock or embarrassment while she should. Fafnir seems to be asexual, as in like no sexual attraction whatsoever. So to summarize this whole theme right here, Kobayashi and Toru, gay. The children, gay. Fafnir and his roommate, didn't really show it, but gay. Birds in the background, I see no sexual dimorphism among those two, so I'm gonna say gay. Now of course one could argue that those two birds are just of the same species, so wait, we can't call that gay. Really? Well, take the comment of this guy online who adjusts to that image. Actually, those are two male fork-tailed swallows. Females of the species are dull-colored, and more brown-looking, and have more tail feathers. So yes, they gay. Even though Japan is behind as a nation among LGBT rights compared to other countries in the world, mine included, they do seem to embrace a little bit in their media, and their androgyny, I hear, is more accepted over there compared to here, though. So at least they have us beat there, and it's only, I guess, a matter of time before I'm interested to see how Japan evolves as a nation when it comes to subjects like this. Well, I guess time will tell. It's not really like a big bearing on the show. To summarize it, I liked it. I really hope that they make a second season, even though it's kind of like a show about nothing, just living every day to day and stuff. Although I've heard some fans that I've met at conventions earlier that shows like this aren't really like for them. They prefer to have shows that have like a narrative conflict. And Kobayashi's Dragon Maid doesn't really have that. It's kind of like life with a dragon, just regular everyday life with a dragon, you know, and I can kind of understand that, but I did see at the end of the episode it seemed like it was going to finally start, because that's when Toru's father shows up and she has to face his rejection of human society and her forcing her to come back home, and that's when things really sound like they're going to get more serious and more interesting, but unfortunately the first season cuts off there. So we need another second season. If not, we're just gonna have to buy the mangas to continue the story. But the animations that they make with these characters are just too adorable and way too interesting just to leave to pen and paper. So please bring out a second season. I really want to see that happen, and I'm not alone when I say that. We need more Kana. I'm talking a Kana that is so cute and adorable that she makes even bullies go gay for her. I want to see more scenes like my favorite where they do dodgeball with a volleyball. That one was my particular favorite. You really get to see the dragons, like in human form, display dragon-like level abilities, but they still have to maintain their human form to kind of keep people from suspecting who they really are. That to me was one of the highlights of the entire series, and I just want to see more like that. I wish the show had more scenes like that, like at least one per episode, if not one every other episode. Sure, there were more scenes like that later on in the series, but I wanted to see a lot more of that because it's what really gets my interest. More of my favorite scenes, please. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. I know it's been a while since I did videos like this, but I do plan to do more, so subscribe if you haven't already. And if life doesn't get in the way or more slow news happens, I'll see what I can do, or at least plan ahead. I had this video planned after the series ended, but I had other stuff to do. So hit that subscribe button so you can know when I release another video. In the meantime, this is Dan, and I have no objections to Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.